What's up, Nerfers, and welcome to my video on the high power version of the PK Knight. After that epic intro of many kills, you might be mistaken for thinking PK stands for player killer, but in fact PK stands for the people who designed this thing, print keep. This is a 3D printed blaster specifically designed for Europe and Australia, thanks to its use of easy to source metric hardware. It's also designed to be very easy to print and very easy to assemble for beginners. Now this one here was sent to me thanks to Australian vendor Capital 3D, and I'll put links to them as well as Print Keep down below where you can get the files yourself if you want to make it at home. Of course, being 3D printed, you can print it in any color you like. I chose this tan color, but you could go absolutely wild, as rainbow or as lack of color as you like. In the designer's own words, the PK Knight was designed to give every competitive advantage possible to the player holding it. To start off with, I'll touch on the durability. It's an incredibly rugged blaster, no flex to it at all. It also has a very slim profile, making it great for maneuvering on the field. It's incredibly lightweight, so you can also hold it shouldered for pretty much indefinitely. You'll walk around with it up on your shoulder, ready to shoot, and never have to put it down because it's too heavy. Up the front, it's got a 16mm outer diameter barrel, so you can use pretty much any Nerf rifling you like. I've opted to use the Saber rifling today. It's the best one that I own, but you can use pretty much any Nerf rifling you like on this thing, and there's so many different options out there. That barrel itself is quick swappable. We've got two thumb screws hidden inside of the top rail there. If you loosen both of them, it allows you to remove the barrel. You can experiment with other 16mm barrels to get different power levels out of the blaster with different springs. Keeping with the slim profile of the blaster, the forward grip doesn't actually attach on an extra bit of Picatinny rail. Instead, that is purpose built for the blaster and screws in with a bolt underneath. It's a very comfortable grip though, fits my entire hand, so I have no complaints with it there. Got a little part for your middle finger there and front finger on the front. Inside of there, the priming block rides on 4 metal bearings as well as 2 CNC rollers, giving you a buttery smooth prime. In fact, I'll do this again. I can prime this with one finger quite effortlessly. Although it is a decently heavy prime, I wouldn't expect someone under the age of maybe 10 to be able to do it. And that's due to the shorter draw length of this blaster. However, the shorter draw length increases your rate of fire, so you're able to rapid fire this thing very quickly. That's without any slam fire because it doesn't have it. Keeping with the slim profile of the blaster overall, there are no attachment points on the sides, no M-lock slots, no Picatinny rail. Kept it nice and simple with a decorative cutout on the front there. You do have quite a lot of real estate up on the top rail here, and that top rail is very sturdy. It actually has metal rods that go through the pick rail to keep it straight so that your zero doesn't change on your optic. Speaking of optics, I'm of course using my discontinued HoloSun HS506. You guys can finally stop asking me in the comments what sight this is, because I don't make it anymore. Coming down to the mag well, it is designed for worker Talon magazines. Doesn't really have much of a flare to it, but it's very easy to get the mags into it. It also gravity drops the mags, and you can It also gravity drops the mags. You can use either your trigger finger there on the top bit or your middle finger on the bottom paddle there. You can of course just grab the mag out with your left hand too. The chamber itself is designed to be able to hand load darts straight in there as a last ditch effort. Not something I'd personally do, just carry more mags on you so that never happens, but as a last ditch effort, you can just manually load darts straight in there. Now the trigger pull, I wouldn't say it really has any take up to it, maybe a mil of play or so there, but it does have a medium weight. Very easy to pull the trigger, it's just not as light as some blasters are. Now, this blaster also has some goodies inside of it that give it incredibly high efficiency and low standard deviations. It's a combination of how they've designed the air path, as well as a spring guide and a thrust bearing. A thrust bearing allows the spring to rotate in there to keep it straighter as it fires. All of those combined should give it incredibly low standard deviations over the chrono, meaning much tighter groupings on a target as well. And those are things I'm very excited to test later on. But first, I want to show you how to change the spring in this thing. Much like the rest of this blaster, that is a toolless design as well. Simply underneath the stock here, there's a thumb screw you loosen off, and then there's these 2 black tabs on the back here. pinch both sides of them in, and then the blaster will separate just above the trigger there. You can pull the spring out the front here. There is supposedly a combo of spring and barrel coming for this later on that'll get it above 300 FPS. For now though, let's go see what it's doing in its stock configuration. Okay, Nerfers, today I'm using 1 gram worker bamboo darts to shoot over the chrono. I'm very interested to see how tight the standard deviations are with this blaster, considering it has that thrust bearing inside. Let's see how it does. 251, 254, 254, 256, 256, 253, 252, 250, 257, 257, and 257. Over the chrono, it got an average of 254 feet per second with a very consistent standard deviation of 2.5. A well-designed blaster indeed to get such a consistent reading, especially when you remember this is a DIY 3D printed one. Given that consistency, I'm very keen to move on to the accuracy test. Okay, Nerfers, most of you know the drill by now. We're shooting at a 1 meter diameter round target from 30 meters or 100 feet away, using this water-filled drum as a rest with a sandbag on top, and the darts I'm using, because they're more accurate than what I use in the chrono test, I'm using Sabre heavyweight T-darts. For the accuracy test, I also decided to take things a bit slower than normal given how consistent the FPS was, and I even carefully hand-loaded each shot. Though I will of course cut some of that out for you guys to save you watching the same thing over and over. There's the first shot. Second shot. Third shot, a little bit higher. Somewhere in between the other darts. Oh, that one went a little bit higher than the rest. Back down near the ball, maybe slightly to the right. Back up near where some of those other shots were. Back up near the other shots. Seems to be a fair few grouping up at that top right there. And I think this is the last shot. There we go. All out. From 30 meters away, we're looking at a grouping 50 centimeters high, but only 25 centimeters wide. Incredibly impressive for a blaster that's DIY and 3D printed. If you look at the distribution as well, there's essentially 3 low left outliers, which when removed, leave a 25 by 25 grouping. So the efficiencies inside this, such as the thrust bearing, are really putting in some work for the accuracy. But after testing the PK Knight and using it for a day of gameplay, what do I think about it overall? Well, it's certainly a great 3D printed option for us in Australia and Europe because of its metric hardware. But from a player standpoint, it's also slim and lightweight, making it highly maneuverable out on the field, and you can keep it shouldered pretty much indefinitely. Velocity is incredibly consistent with a standard deviation of only 2.5, and the accuracy for a DIY option was rivaling some much more expensive fully metal blasters. It has a lot of competitive oriented features too, such as the way the mag release functions, and toolless barrel and spring swaps are always a plus as well. Overall, I'm very impressed with it, and if you are too, you can find it at the links down below. That's all I have for you guys today. Like, comment, subscribe, and all of that. Here's 2 other videos you might enjoy, and as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.